Hello everyone. I'm James, the community manager here at Petexia, actually James McCall. Um, Welcome to this installment of the Petexia IP Matters web series. This webinar is going to be on patent monetization strategies. Thank you very much for coming. We'll be taking questions during the webinar via Twitter, and we'll address the questions at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions, just tweet them to @Petexia. We'll be monitoring that feed. We're also going to record the webinar, and I will email you the slides after the recording is over, as well. So I'll email you and the slides and the recording after it's over. And one second, I'm just going to make sure this is broadcasting properly. But you can see the full list of webinars. Okay, yeah, it's working. Yeah, it's working fine. Just a little bit of delay. So yeah, so don't forget, you can see the full list of past and upcoming webinars on the IP Matters page. That's petexia.com/ipmatters.html. So today's speaker is Peter Kim. Peter is the principal at Irvine Point. Peter has over a decade of experience in this industry. He's worked with 2 publicly traded IP licensing companies and 2 venture-backed patent monetization startups. He was Director of IP Strategy at Rambus and has also worked with Acacia Research, IP Value, and Walker Digital. He's going to be talking today about patent monetization strategies and how to get the most out of a patent. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Peter.
Thanks, James. Let me just give you a little bit of background before we jump into the slides. Irvine Point Advisory has the mission to demystify IP strategy. We believe that the audience of any business strategy is the CEO of a company. By comparison, a military strategy has to make sense to the general of an army. But in our industry, we sometimes confuse IP strategy, and we think it's very complicated legal analysis or complicated technology forecasting. At Irvine Point, we believe that an IP strategy has to make sense to the CEO in order for it to be effective. I'm going to share some slides. Just give me one second. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my slides. Well, I'd like to thank Pedram for kindly inviting me to speak today, and I'd also like to thank James for organizing the Petexia webinar. I'm also grateful to all of you for giving me the opportunity to share my views. Our time schedule today is actually quite short. It's only about 20 minutes, and I have a hard stop in about 40 minutes. So I'll try to be very efficient in order to give us some time for question and answer at the end. If you have any questions that aren't answered, you can email me at peter@irvinepoint.com. I have a confession to make before we start. My confession is I love patents. I first got involved with patents in 1999 at Walker Digital. I worked for a billionaire named Jay Walker, and part of my job was actually to come up with ideas. Let me give you a story about why I love patents so much. I was working at Walker Digital, and I was filing my year 2000 taxes, and I was due a big tax refund from the federal government, which, as you know, takes a few weeks to receive. But I wanted my money right away. So I came up with this idea to receive an advance or receive a loan against my tax refund by showing my tax return to a bank and just borrowing the money that I'm owed by the government. And so I pitched this idea to Jay, and he told me the idea was stupid. Any of you who've worked for Jay Walker before know exactly what I'm talking about. I felt really discouraged, so I walked around the office and I pitched my idea to one of the vice presidents. And he said, hey, let me run it by my friend. So he ran it by his friend who was a partner at KPMG. So we called him up in a conference call and I pitched him the idea about the tax return and how to loan money against it. And he said that was a stupid idea. So I said, well, I tried. I mean, I pitched it to a billionaire. He said it was stupid. I pitched it to the partner of KPMG, and he said it was stupid. So I gave up. And a few years later, of course, I saw that TurboTax was offering this exact feature in their product. I can only imagine what could have happened if we had filed the patent at that time. but who knows? So to me, patents actually symbolize the power of ideas and creative thinking. Today's topic is deciding between either selling or licensing patents. And these are two really powerful IP strategies that are available to CEOs, patent owners, and inventors. But before we discuss the topic, let's discuss a little bit of context. I really enjoy quoting from Warren Buffett. He has a quote here about advice on getting a haircut. You know, Mr. Buffett's in his 80s, and look at how great his hair looks in this picture. We should definitely consider fashion advice and haircut tips from Mr. Buffett, considering how distinguished he looks. Warren Buffett says, never ask a barber if you need a haircut. Never ask a barber if you need a haircut. Well, what does that phrase have to do with patents? Maybe I can rephrase Mr. Buffett's advice and tailor it for the patent owner. Never ask a patent broker if you should sell your patents. Never ask a patent broker if you should sell your patents. Or maybe we could say, never ask a lawyer if you should litigate your patents. Never ask a lawyer if you should litigate your patents. We're actually going to revisit this advice at the end of the presentation. You know, over the years, many patent owners have asked me for advice. And I really get one type of question more than any other. Although it's never quite phrased this way, the most common question I get is, why is patent licensing so hard? You know, I said they don't really phrase it that way, so here's kind of some of the examples of what inventors tell me, and I've put them in bullet points here on the right. And I agree, patent licensing is very hard. There's lots of things that can go wrong, and there's some really shady practices in the industry and very unethical people. A few years ago, there was a Hollywood movie based on a real-life inventor, and the movie was called Flash of Genius. I put a graphic of it on the left. If you're an inventor, you should watch this movie, and you will feel a tremendous empathy for the character of Robert Kearns, played by Greg Kinnear. Patent licensing is hard for an inventor, and sometimes it feels like the entire world is against him. So an offer comes along to a patent owner, to an inventor, to sell the patent. And despite how hard it is to license this patent, the owner or the CEO starts to wonder, am I taking this money and selling out? And again, they don't phrase it this way, but this is essentially the question that's on every patent owner's mind that gets offered to sell their patent. You know, one thing to keep in mind is patent owners think differently than owners of just about anything else. There is an intense emotional and psychological attachment to assets that represent ideas and creative thinking. You know, at least for most inventors, the idea is like their baby. And just like it's impossible to imagine selling your children for money, it is impossible to imagine selling your patents for money. There are a lot of other emotions and feelings that inventors, or frankly even corporate CEOs, go through when they consider selling a patent. All of these emotions and feelings are real, and they're valid, and they're really universal amongst all patent owners. So what should I do? You know, your question might be, how should I think about these alternatives? I'm going to share two important strategic insights today that will help you. But first, before we get into that, let me talk about what factors to avoid, because this is very important. Here's a list of some of the biggest pitfalls in a patent owner's decision-making process. It really boils down to this. Patent owners want to be paid for factors that have no value to the other side. Let me say that again. Patent owners want to be paid for factors that have no value to the other side. The cover of this presentation, you may have seen, had a quote by Phil Jackson. And Phil Jackson is a former basketball coach of the Los Angeles Lakers and Chicago Bulls. He coached both Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, two of the greatest basketball players of all time. And the quote on the cover said, from Jackson says, loss can be a catalyst for growth. Let me repeat that. Loss can be a catalyst for growth. So the first thing that a patent owner can do is start to mourn for whatever losses are in the past. I've listed a few common situations here, but it's really hard to acknowledge these losses, but if you put it behind, then you're able to move forward. Okay. One great strategy is to sell your patent to a big company in trouble. Most patent owners want to sell the patent to the company that is infringing. But actually, that won't get you the most money. In order to make the really big money, you have to actually sell the patent to a big company that is fighting the company that is infringing your patent. Let me explain. This graph is a really simplistic diagram that illustrates the economics of a cross-license negotiation between two large companies. We're going to first talk about the scenario of companies A and B, and then we're going to talk about the scenario of company A and C. Company A has $100 million of product revenue, and it also owns one patent. Company B has $400 million of product revenue, and it also owns one patent. So A and B are suing one another, and they're entering into a cross-license negotiation, and it cannot be a zero money down cross-license. Why is that? Because each of them are infringing the other patent, but it's only even because the $100 million of company A's revenue is offset by the $100 million of company B's revenue. We haven't accounted for this additional $300 million liability of company B that's infringing company A's patent. Let's compare this scenario with company A and C. Company A, again, has $100 million of product revenue with one patent. Company C has $500 million of product revenue, but they have 5 patents. So if company A and company C enter into a cross-license negotiation, theoretically, it could be a zero-money cross-license. I call this concept diseconomies of scale in patent cross-licenses. That's to differentiate it from the more common topic that's called economies of scale. So you see, when two companies have the same size and the same value patent portfolio, the company with the larger product revenue actually has a bigger liability. That's why it's an important strategy to look for these types of situations and try to sell your patent to the bigger company that is fighting the infringer of your patent. My belief is that this is the highest and best use for a patent. The other thing that patent owners ask me is, should I work with a licensing partner? There are actually many firms today that will buy your patent from you and give you a profit share. The strategic insight here is that when you're considering working with a patent licensing partner, most patent owners actually focus on the wrong decision criteria. The number one most important question to ask is, do I trust the patent licensing partner? The word trust. Because if I don't trust my patent licensing partner, then all the other factors don't matter. And the diagram on the right side is showing the factors that lead to trusting your patent partner. So I provided 2 strategic insights to patent owners. One of them is on how to sell your patent and maximize the most amount of money. And the other is how to work with a licensing partner. But perhaps you feel like asking me, so which one should I do? What's the right answer? Or you might say, which decision will make me happier? You know, that question is really impossible for me to answer in a vacuum. It requires more analysis, more discussion that's customized and tailored to your own situation. But there is an interesting expression I'd like to share here. This is also from Warren Buffett. It overturns the well-known expression, a bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. You see, not as well known as the expression that's presented by Warren Buffett here. We can actually say the bird in the hand in this scenario is selling the patent, and the 2 in the bush is licensing the patent. So sometimes it's better to sell your patent, and sometimes it's better to license your patent. But I will close with a few thoughts and also a few tangible next steps for you to pursue to answer this question better. I opened the presentation with a quote from Warren Buffett: "Never ask a barber if you need a haircut." I guess what I'm trying to say here is try to understand the nature of conflicted advice. The next thing you should do is look for a trusted advisor. Ideally, your trusted advisor is someone who's already dealt with the same problems that you're facing and they've come out on the other side. Regardless of whether they've succeeded or failed, they will have a great perspective to share with you. Lastly, how do you find these people? Well, a great resource is actually the Licensing Executive Society, LES. It is a trade group of licensing professionals, and the annual membership fee is less than $300. There are local chapter meetings all across the country with really great and affordable seminars. Plus, you have access to a directory of all of the licensing professionals that are members. And the bigger conferences that occur a couple times a year are a great way to meet lots of people over a 2 to 3 day period. If you diligently pursue these options, you will definitely find somebody who can help you. There's no need to go through these issues by yourself without advice. Before we open up for Q&A, first I'd like to thank everyone for sharing your time with me today. I'll just take a moment to mention the name of the firm again, Irvine Point Advisory. There is additional information at the website irvinepoint.com, and you can reach me at peter@irvinepoint.com. If you email me, I'd be happy to send you a PDF of the slides today. Okay, we have some time for questions, I think, and I'm going to close the presentation and hand it back over to James and see if we have any questions from the audience.
Okay, thanks very much, Peter. That was, I thought, excellent. Yeah, let me have a look, and we'll just give it a minute for some questions to roll in. So I think a good first question, something that's pretty topical and been going on a lot, how do you think a lot of the recent moves by the administration and the White House is going to affect either the patent assertion industry or the process of patent assertion for the small, for individual inventors, the kind of people you were presenting to today?
The latest legislation that's coming out of the Obama White House is actually just a continuation of a trend that's been happening in the past few years. The trend has been flowing through Congress. It's also been flowing through the district court judges, and that is, it's becoming harder and harder from a regulatory and law standpoint to enforce your patents. That's being offset somewhat by the fact that it's actually getting easier to enforce your patents in other ways, because there's access to capital, there's plenty of law firms that are willing to work on contingency. So a very small inventor has a lot of great resources available to him today that he didn't have maybe 5 or 10 years ago, but at the same time it's being offset by all of these changes. I actually believe in the long run the game will actually move away from the small inventor and from the small company, and increasingly the value of monetizing patents is going to be captured by the larger companies. There's just too much resources involved in doing this stuff, and it continues to go in that trend. So that's definitely a point that I emphasize to all inventors that ask me about this.
Cool. And let's see. I think we're coming up on the end of our time. So maybe one quick kind of last question is what do you think is the one thing people should take away from your talk today? If they can only take away one thing.
The one thing to take away is to recognize that the intellectual property is an asset that has emotional attachment. Even a CEO, even if he's not the inventor of a patent, he's going to feel a tremendous attachment to it, and that's going to cloud potentially the judgment and the decision making. I think in order to maximize the value of the patent, they need to think about whether or not to sell the patent, and I provided one strategy to sell the patent, or work with a patent licensing partner and try to detach themselves from some of the more emotional or psychological aspects of making this decision.
Cool. That's interesting. That's a very I think that's not something I've really heard before as a major major aspect of patent licensing, but I could see how that would be actually a really important issue in terms of thinking clearly and rationally and not having something cloud your judgment when it comes to making these decisions.
Thank you.
Excellent. So, I mean, that's all the time we have for today, guys. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much to Peter for speaking. The recording and the slides are going to be available shortly. I'll send those out via email to the people who signed up, and then we'll also post them on our site. Just a reminder, Peter is the principal at Irvine Point. He mentioned his website. That's irvinepoint.com. We'll send that information out as well. Our next webinar is going to take place on July 11th, and that'll be with Michael Lin, who's going to talk about patent enforcement in China, which should be a pretty interesting topic as well. As always, the full list of past and upcoming webinars is on the IP Matters page. And thank you again, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.